Hello everybody, welcome back to the Limit of Adhesion for Season 2. My name's Gareth and joining me as always is Jim. Jim, how are you?
I'm very well. I'm very excited to see some new cars from the Limit of Adhesion drivers for a second season. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, the Limit of Adhesion is a Friends and Acquaintances Championship. We race online at iRacing. And what you are seeing at the moment is some footage from a practice race that some of the drivers took part in recently, so you can see what's going on and what it looks like. And so this is our second season of racing. We had a very entertaining championship last time out with the Radical car. We were briefly just then on board with our champion, Mark Tranter. There he is in the black car, leading David Line in the white car. So we're going to talk to you about the new car. We're using the Skip Barber RT2000 this season. It's got a 2-litre engine, 4-cylinder, based on a Chrysler Neon engine of all things. 5-speed sequential gearbox. It's a slower car than the previous year's Radical. 0 to 60 only 4.5 seconds compared to the Radical's 2.8, and a top speed of only 128 miles an hour compared to the Radical's 173. But it's a great car for racing. It's very popular on the iRacing platform. Jim, have you had much of a chance to try this car before?
I haven't. I don't really know much about it. It's cool to see single-seater racing, and wow, straight away Tranter putting his foot down to say, "I'm the boss. Get out of my way." They look a bit more fragile potentially. There's a lot of exposed parts, obviously, with a single-seater. So. Be interesting to see the damage that could be on these cars.
Yeah, you've got to be very careful with your exposed wheels and the suspension. If you do hit the wall, you are facing a potential broken suspension and a tow back to the pits. So this is a 12-week championship this time. We had 11 weeks the last time, and we have a slightly new calendar this year. We'll be starting in the Silverstone Southern track. That's one of the smaller layouts at Silverstone from the old 2008 version of Silverstone, before we go to Okayama International, where we had a hugely entertaining race last year, Laguna Seca, where we are on track at the moment, and then a shortened version of the Nürburgring GP track, which is called the Sprint Strecke, Suzuka GP and Oulton Park, before we have a mid-season break, and then Oran Park, which is a sadly demolished track in Australia, Lime Rock Park, but a different version to last time. This was one with chicanes, Summit Point Raceway, which we did last time, Scuba, but again a slightly altered layout, Spa Francorchamps, the famous track in Belgium, and finishing off with another version of Suzuka, which is a shortened track, which I've had a go on actually, and that is a very entertaining track. It should be a great fun track for this Skip Barber car. Jim, any tracks you're particularly looking forward to this season?
Well, just all of them. I'm a big Formula One fan, and it's good to see that the cars are going to visit some of these classic Formula One destinations. And Spa is terrific, of course. So it's going to be a long lap time, I think, for the speed these cars get up to. But it's just really interesting, and such a cool point you mentioned as we see Tranter getting out of it just before they get to the corkscrew. But Kelly, these guys racing around. Of course, the championship was kind of fought here last season, with these guys being a bit further down the field, and David Line took the win at here. And yeah, I was just thinking there, the fact you can have a championship which exists at some tracks which no longer exist in real life is such a good point for sim racing. It's something, obviously you can't go around the old Hockenheim ring in real life anymore, but you can in a virtual race, and it's such a cool thing that you can do these championships. You could have a 1980s championship. So yeah, I'm really interested to see some of these different tracks, and especially with this much slower car. We've got a spinner there.
Kelly getting it wrong into is it the Andretti hairpin they call it here? Well, we'd always called it turn 1, but it's really turn 2 on the map. So Kelly getting it wrong and holding up dirty Windslade. We have 3 new drivers for the championship this year, which is really good to see. We've got Gary Richards, who has a C licence on iRacing at the moment, Lucky Luke Hollick, who is a D licence, and William Bibbs Bibby, who has a B licence as well. Both of those last two have done the last season of Skip Barber racing on the iRacing platform, so a lot of experience with the car, and I'm very excited to see where they slot into the order.
Well, we've got Gary Richards there, looks just behind David Lyne as we were watching them in the Williams livery. Good to see some new names. It's especially with the experience that you mentioned there, that adds a bit of a new dimension to the championship. We don't know where these guys will fit in, like you say. It's a different championship entirely, so potentially the front runners from last season might not be front runners this season in a completely different car.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other interesting new factor for the season is that we have a teams championship for the first time. There was some discussion about how to put the teams together, but in the end it was done on a sort of randomized number generator. So we'll talk you through the teams and the drivers in each team. So we've got the Stupid Aguirre team, which is Gavin Kelly and Stephen Batty. The Verge of Grip team, which is Mark Tranter and Will Burnett. The Keith Chegwin Memorial team, David Lyne and Gary Jones. Little and Large, which is Rob Miller and Tony Hankin. Lucky Bibs, Luke Hollick and William Bibby. The Walliams team, which is Gary Richards and James Garlick, and the Dirty Legends, which is Lawrence Aaron Jenkins and Gareth Winslade. And finally we have a privateer runner, a non-team driver, which will be Paul Dixon.
Well, if the season's going to be anywhere near as fun as those names, we're going to be in for a great one. I think KGMT, the Keith Chegwin Memorial team, is my personal favourite of them all, but everyone's gone for something. Very entertaining there.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what their livery is going to be like. We can see David Lyne from that team on track there in his familiar white livery car, but obviously he's not going to be racing a white car when we start racing at Silverstone, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing what they come up with there.
Well, Adrian Newey's very famous and respected in Formula One, of course, but Gary Jones is the most respected paint designer, I think, in the Limit of Adhesion world, isn't he?
Yeah, he certainly is. Yeah, that's a great point. So here we've got an onboard here from Mark Tranter looking back at David Lyne, just homing in on him, trying to find his way past, coming into the final corner here.
It's great to see the suspension working, isn't it? There?
Yeah, it's an awesome detail. So we've had some practice times already. The drivers have a fair amount of smack talking and posting of times, and Dave Lyne on a personal mission of chasing the dragon, trying to get into a 1:16 at Silverstone, but currently sitting on a 1:17.2, and he's currently our fastest driver at Silverstone. Gavin on a 1:17.5, then Rob on a 17.9. And then from James down to Mark, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 drivers, all within half a second between 1:18.2 and 1:18.7, and then a couple of 1:19.5s behind them. I mean, that's incredibly close, isn't it, Jim?
Well, qualifying's going to be ace, isn't it, with that level of competition? I mean, look how close these guys are on track right now. A bit too close for comfort for Lyne there.
They seem to be coming off second best every time they see go into the corkscrew.
Yeah, I think Tranter in that ninja livery might be thinking he's taking these guys out in ninja style. But yeah, got a bit wide there as well. It's going to be fascinating to see who comes out on top in qualifying. And Silverstone last time round, everyone very familiar with it. It's a different layout of the circuit this time. It could be close racing. Tranter spinning off. Yeah, it could be really close in qualifying and then close racing. But of course, again, the guys, as we know, who start at the top don't necessarily finish at the top. So it's one thing to be fast, but they've got to stay on the track, and from what we've been seeing in this practice session, not everybody's been that successful at doing that.
No, very much so, and the Skip is renowned for being a very skatey car on cold tyres. It takes at least 2 or 3 laps to before you can start pushing. I mean, that's quite familiar from the Radical, but I think the effect is even more exacerbated in the Skip Barber. And I think the key to the races is going to be who can bring the tyres in quickest and who can lean on them while they're cold, because you're going to be seeing the drivers doing somewhere in the region of 3 to 5 seconds a lap off their ultimate pace in the early stages of the race. But if someone like Dave, who we've seen, he can sort of get into the 18s, and low 19s within 1 or 2 laps around Silverstone, whereas the other drivers will probably still be in the 20s and 21s. So if they're not careful, then they could end up 10 seconds behind him, which would just be crying shame for our race viewing pleasure. I'm hoping some of the other drivers are able to control that.
Well, it's the talented drivers. We saw that last season. I mean, Dave Line finishing third in the championship. So based on last season's performance, you had Kelly and Tranter finishing ahead of him. But I mean, we're just talking about practice sessions here. We need to know everybody's pace. Some people might be not telling the full story. We just need to wait until the actual racing gets underway. Like pre-season testing in F1, you just can't take that much from it. And the ultimate pace we'll see very soon. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, but I'm expecting a slightly different order of things. I mean, Dave certainly seems to be the favourite at the moment. We've had some times from the second round, Okayama as well, and there he's done a 1:42.9 compared to Gavin's 1:44.2, and he's the second fastest driver. I mean, that's a colossal gap, isn't it?
It's a big gap. There's a lot of time to practice, of course. And looking at these guys now racing, they're really throwing this car around, aren't they? Skips look like they can take a bit more abuse when you go around oversteering and sliding around the corners than we could in the radicals. But like I said again, you could be first on the grid, get overtaken. See, this close racing. This is excellent. Tranter well held there. Yeah, and you could be first on the grid, but then second into the first corner, and it doesn't matter how fast you were on a single lap pace. If you're running behind somebody, you have to make your way past them, and that's where people could lose time, and those behind them might not be able to. Those behind them might be able to catch up and remain in the hunt here. So, I mean, these 4 drivers we're seeing on screen now, they've been at it and close racing for the last 2 minutes we've been watching them. So it doesn't matter if Dave Line is 5 seconds a lap faster than anybody. If he's not at the front because of a great start by somebody on second place, it doesn't mean he's going to win the race. It means we're going to have a lot of action.
No, that's right. Yeah, true. And it will be, I mean, the Skip is, it is a car that you chuck around. It is a car that, you likes to be hustled to get the maximum amount of times, but when it goes wrong, you are going to lose a hell of a lot of time if you spin, or if you hit the wall, you're going to have to get towed because you will break your suspension. So and that could happen to Dave just as easily as one of the. Oh, that was a big one there. Yeah, just as easily as it could happen to what someone down the back see, and then we can see the checkered flag waving there on the gantry, which is the end of this. This entertaining practice session. So I honestly cannot wait to see. So the videos will be released every Sunday, and Jim, I can't wait to be calling the next race with you.
No, I've really enjoyed season 1, and season 2 should be just as good, if not better.
Yeah, absolutely. So make sure you like and subscribe, and we will see you at the races.